Welcome back to the deep dive, where we extract the crucial knowledge you need to master a topic thoroughly and efficiently. Today, we are taking a deep breath and focusing on a figure whose impact was so profound, she didn't just win gold. She permanently altered the limits of what was considered possible in her sport.
We are, of course, discussing Nadia Comăneci. And she is so much more than a five-time Olympic gold medalist, although, that's achievement enough. She stands as one of the few athletes recognized globally as an athlete of the 20th century by the Laureus World Sports Academy. But to really understand her legacy, you have to look beyond just the medal count, the 9 Olympic and 4 World Championship medals, and examine the source material that truly defines her.
Absolutely. For you listeners who crave that deep knowledge, we're synthesizing her technical genius, that sheer artistry and, well, that stoic grace that brought this unprecedented global attention to women's gymnastics in the 1970s, with the unforgiving complexity of her life under the shadow of the Socialist Republic of Romania.
Yeah, and our sources really compel us to analyze the political pressure that both created and eventually tried to confine her perfection. Her career is this fascinating intersection of athletic idealism and totalitarian control, culminating in her really dramatic defection.
So we have to start with that moment of creation. The question that still reverberates today is, how did a 14-year-old Romanian gymnast not just win a gold medal, but fundamentally break the mathematics of her entire sport overnight? We're beginning with that pivotal day in Montreal. The date is July 18th, 1976. The venue is the Montreal Summer Olympics. And Nadia Comăneci is up for the uneven bars during the team compulsories. Now, compulsory routines, they're designed to test execution and consistency. They aren't usually where, historic innovation happens. Yet, this is where she delivered the routine that became legend.
And what's so critical to understand about that moment is the almost palpable shift in the atmosphere. The crowd was tense, expectant. They knew they were watching a top competitor. But what Comăneci delivered was a routine of such clean lines, such explosive dynamism, and just such absolute unflinching precision that the judges simply ran out of deductions to take.
The judges, who are historically pretty conservative, right, they really had no choice. They flashed the score. And that is where mechanical reality just failed to keep up with the athletic miracle.
It's the detail that makes the story so iconic. The official scoreboard manufacturer for the games, Omega SA, they had engineered the device to display scores up to 9.95. The conventional wisdom in gymnastics, stretching back decades, was that a 10.0 was a theoretical ideal. Something literally impossible for a human to achieve. So Omega had only programmed for 4 digits.
They calculated the theoretical maximum score for a human, and they were just wrong.
Precisely. So when the perfect 10-0 was entered by the judging panel, the scoreboard, which was incapable of processing the 4 digits and the decimal point correctly.
Yeah.
It displayed 1.0.
100.
Yeah. And there was this moment of just profound confusion in the arena. Was she penalized? Did she fall? Only the officials, the coaches, and the most informed spectators understood immediately that the 1 was the start of a new, unbelievable era. It was perfection that literally broke the machine designed to measure it.
And the audience soon learned the meaning of that 1.0 because Comăneci didn't just hit perfection once.
No, her performance at Montreal wasn't a one-off fluke. It was sustained mastery. Over the course of those games, she earned 6 more perfect 10s.
6 more.
6 more, totaling 7 overall. The first one was on the uneven bars. She then went on to earn 4 10s on the balance beam, which is, the most terrifying and arguably difficult apparatus, and 2 more on the uneven bars in the subsequent rounds.
She basically demonstrated that 10.0 was the new baseline for elite success. And this brilliance translated into an astonishing haul of medals. Walk us through her final count for the 1976 Games.
Well, she left Montreal as the most decorated gymnast. She claimed gold medals in 3 individual events: the prestigious individual all-around title, the uneven bars, and the balance beam. On top of that, she contributed to the team's silver medal in the all-around competition and secured a bronze for her floor exercise performance. At age 14, she had just captivated the entire globe.
We have to place this achievement in the context of that intense Cold War rivalry that really defined gymnastics at the time. This was not a moment without serious world-class competition.
Not at all. The atmosphere was charged with geopolitical competition, primarily between Romania and the formidable Soviet Union team. Her main rival was the Soviet Union's Nellie Kim, who herself was an incredible athlete. And it's often forgotten that while Nadia was the first to get the 10.0, Nellie Kim became the second. She accomplished her own perfect score later in those same games, specifically on the vault. The competition between those two, pushing the boundary of that theoretical 10.0, is really what defined the artistry of that era.
And the record she set as the ultimate champion still stands. It's a historical anomaly that speaks to how the sport's rules have evolved.
She holds the distinction of being the youngest ever Olympic gymnastics all-around champion. She achieved the title at 14 years and 250 days old. And this record is now, well, it's essentially unbreakable. Since 1997, the International Gymnastics Federation, the FIGE, has enforced a rule that gymnasts must be at least 16 years old in the calendar year of the Olympics to compete at the senior level. So unless that age minimum is lowered, her record will stand indefinitely. It's a testament to her, her precocious talent.
Her transformation into an instant global celebrity was immediate. She completely displaced previous media darlings like the Soviet Union's Olga Korbut, the Sparrow of Minsk, who had charmed the world 4 years earlier in Munich.
The media frenzy was unprecedented. She was immediately recognized with major accolades, being named the BBC Overseas Sports Personality of the Year and the Associated Press's 1976 Female Athlete of the Year. Back home, the totalitarian Ceausescu administration leveraged her success, celebrating her as a hero of socialist labor and awarding her the Sickle and Hammer Gold Medal. The state viewed her triumph not as personal, but as ideological proof of the superiority of the socialist system.
Which brings us to a crucial element of her pop culture footprint, this persistent, if incorrect, musical association that became nearly as famous as she was.
Ah, yes, the story of Nadia's theme. It's a perfect example of how television can, rewrite history. Most people today, if you ask them to hum the music associated with Nadia Comăneci, would immediately think of that melancholy instrumental piano piece.
Okay, so let's set the record straight for you, our deep dive listener. What was the original life of that music?
Well, it was originally composed by Barry DeVorzon and Perry Botkin Jr. for a 1971 film called Bless the Beasts and Children, and its original title was Cotton's Dream. It also gained notoriety as the theme music for the extremely popular American soap opera, The Young and the Restless.
So how does a soap opera theme become the signature tune for a stoic Romanian athlete?
It was purely the work of Robert Rager, the legendary producer for ABC's Wide World of Sports. During the post-Olympic broadcasts, Rager used the instrumental piece to underscore these slow-motion montages of Comăneci's routines. He was capitalizing on the dramatic contrast between her intense athleticism and the music's emotional, sweeping nature. And the pairing was so successful that it launched the piece commercially, where it became a top 10 single in the U.S. in late 1976.
And because of that commercial success, the composers formally renamed it Nadia's theme in her honor, forever linking her name to a piece of music she never once performed to.
Exactly. The core fact for you to know is this. Nadia Comăneci did not use Nadia's theme for her routines. Her actual floor music during the 1976 Montreal Games was far more upbeat and joyful. It was a lively piano medley arrangement of the songs Yes Sir, That's My Baby and Jump in the Line. The contrast between her real music and her adopted theme music really highlights the media's power to shape public memory and perception.
It certainly does, but to understand how she achieved that reality-bending level of perfection, we need to go back and understand the engine that created her, the revolutionary and famously demanding Károlyi system.
The physical perfection we saw in Montreal was really the result of a decade of relentless, highly focused training. Nadia Elena Comăneci was born in Manati, a modest industrial town in the Carpathian Mountains on November 12, 1961. It wasn't a place associated with world-class athletics, but that was all about to change.
And as you mentioned, the initial spark for her athletic career was pure, unbridled childhood energy, which is, that's far more relatable than some grand Olympic vision.
Her mother, Stefania, recounted that Nadia was an extremely active and difficult-to-manage child, always running, jumping, tumbling. It was simply a search for a constructive outlet for that incredible hyperactivity that led Stefania to enroll her in gymnastics classes. No one was planning for history. They were just looking for a little peace and quiet at home.
And then destiny intervened in the form of Béla Károlyi. This discovery story has become the stuff of legend. It's a testament to Károlyi's persistence.
Yeah, Béla and his wife Márta Károlyi were pioneering this new, intense method of gymnastics training. The idea was to identify talent young and develop it over many, many years. When Nadia was 6, Béla spotted her and a friend turning cartwheels on the school grounds during recess. He saw the natural spring and power immediately.
But the moment was fleeting, right? She went back inside.
Exactly. When the school bell rang, all the children just vanished. Károlyi, determined not to let this raw talent slip away, spent the next period systematically searching classroom by classroom, just going door to door until he located the little girl with the energetic cartwheels. That persistent pursuit really highlights the drive of the man who would become her coach and the intense, almost proprietary approach he took to talent identification.
So she became one of the first students at the school the Károlyi established in Onity. What was so crucial about the environment for her specifically?
She benefited from the intensive Károlyi system from its very inception. And unlike many of the other students who were recruited from across Romania and lived and boarded at the school full-time, Comăneci was a resident of Onity. So for many years, she was able to live at home with her family. And that provided a crucial grounding element during the early years of her grueling training schedule.
But the training itself was anything but grounded. The Károlyi method was famed for its rigor, its discipline, and its incredibly high expectations.
Oh, absolutely. The Károlyi system essentially thought to breed physical perfection through absolute repetition and emotional resilience. They pushed the limits of what was feasible for young athletes, focusing on complex, innovative skills combined with strict, clean execution. And Nadia responded to this almost immediately. She showed a stoicism and a focus that were far beyond her years.
Her rise through the ranks was explosive, starting almost as soon as she entered competition.
She began competing for her hometown team in 1970. By 1971, at the age of 9, she had already made history. She became the youngest gymnast ever to win the Romanian nationals. This was the first clear signal that the Károlyi had found something truly special.
And that success transitioned quickly onto the international junior stage.
At age 10, she won her first all-around title and helped secure the team gold in a dual junior meet against Yugoslavia. But the real junior proving ground was the 1973 Junior Friendship Tournament, known as Druzhba. Competing against the best junior gymnasts from the Soviet bloc, which was the dominant force in the sport at the time, 11-year-old Nadia just dominated. She secured the all-around title, plus vault and uneven bars titles, signaling that she was ready to challenge the senior establishment.
By 1975, the world got its first real look at her senior potential, and it was a stunning announcement.
The 1975 European Women's Artistic Gymnastics Championships in Skien, Norway. They were essentially a coronation. Comăneci, still just 13, swept the field. She won the individual all-around title and took gold medals in 3 of the 4 apparatus finals. Vault, uneven bars, and balance beam. She only missed the climb sweep on the floor exercise where she took silver. This performance effectively told the world, and more importantly the Soviet team, that a new, formidable force had arrived less than a year before the Olympics.
And then the vital precursor to Montreal happened in the United States, showcasing her ability to score those mythical perfect scores.
That was the inaugural American Cup in March 1976 at Madison Square Garden. This event was crucial for her confidence and for global perception. She won the all-around competition, and in both the preliminary and final rounds, she earned those incredibly rare scores of 10 for her vault and floor routines. Those 10s were a warning shot. They showed the judges were willing to award perfection to her, even before the Olympic spotlight.
That competition also holds a sweet, historically significant footnote, where she first encountered her future husband, the American Olympic gold medalist Bart Conner.
It was a brief, almost comical meeting in retrospect. Nadia was 14, Conner was 18. They both won the corresponding men's and women's silver cups and posed for a photo together. Conner has often spoken about the meeting, but Nadia, consumed by the intense focus of her Olympic preparation, later admitted she barely remembered the exchange. It was a fleeting interaction, but one that would dramatically circle back decades later.
A fun anecdote, but the relentless pressure of training meant that such social moments were rare distractions. And the pressure, especially after 1976, was about to become less about athletic excellence and more about political survival.
The success in Montreal transformed Nadia Comăneci from a promising athlete into a state asset. She was a propaganda tool, a symbol of communist excellence. And this transition placed her under immense pressure. The first signs of political interference appeared almost immediately.
And that tension really boiled over in 1977 when she returned to defend her European title.
She did successfully defend her European all-around title, but the competition in Prague was completely tainted. There were widespread rumors and accusations of political bias in the scoring, particularly benefiting the Soviet athletes. The Romanian delegation felt they were being robbed. And Ceausescu, acting personally and decisively, ordered the entire Romanian team to abandon the competition immediately and return home. He forced them to walk out of the event finals in protest.
That public walkout was a huge act of defiance, but it created a fissure between the Károlyi and the Romanian Gymnastics Federation, which that had disastrous consequences for Nadia.
It was a major negative turning point. In August 1977, the Federation, likely viewing the Károlyis as too independent and perhaps too politically volatile, removed Nadia from their care. She was sent to Bucharest to train at the Central Sports Complex under different, less familiar coaches. This was a devastating psychological blow.
She had been with the Károlyi since she was 6 years old. To suddenly lose her lifelong mentors while also entering this tumultuous stage of her young life, that must have been incredibly disruptive.
It was a period of deep crisis, both mental and physical. Comăneci was navigating adolescence. She described the training environment in Bucharest as negative and hostile, the combination of intense bodily changes. That infamous 4-inch growth spurt and 22-pound weight gain between 76 and 78, combined with the emotional upheaval of losing her coaches, caused her skills to suffer dramatically. She later wrote that she was deeply unhappy and even lost the will to live.
So by the time she competed in the 1978 World Championships in Strasbourg, the changes were clear, affecting her signature precision.
Her body mechanics, which had been perfectly calibrated for a lighter, smaller frame in 1976, were now completely different. Events requiring instantaneous, precise corrections like the uneven bars became really difficult. The pressure culminated in a major mistake, a fall from the uneven bars during the competition. And this error proved costly. It relegated her to a 4th-place finish in the individual all-around behind a trio of Soviet gymnasts.
It must have felt like a massive political defeat for the regime that had celebrated her so grandly just 2 years earlier.
It was a public setback, which perhaps convinced the Federation to course-correct. Following the 1978 Worlds, they finally allowed her to return to the Károlyis training school. That reunion was crucial. It enabled her to stabilize her technique and manage the physical demands of her new body under the guidance of the only people who truly understood her training needs.
But the dramatic pressure cooker came back immediately with the 1979 World Championships in Fort Worth, Texas. This is the moment where her commitment becomes almost mythological.
This is truly the emotional core of her competitive narrative. Comăneci had successfully regained her form and was leading the all-around competition after the compulsory routines. But disaster struck just before the optional round. She was hospitalized with blood poisoning caused by a cut on her wrist from her metal grip buckle. The infection was serious, it quickly became a massive abscess, and she was dangerously ill.
And against all medical advice, we're talking explicit orders from her doctors at All Saints Hospital, she insisted on leaving her hospital bed. Why?
The team competition was on the line. Every point mattered tremendously in the close battle with the Soviet Union. The pressure from the Romanian delegation to secure a team victory, the first ever World Championship team gold for Romania, was overwhelming. Comăneci chose to risk her health for the national glory the regime demanded. She focused only on the balance beam, the apparatus that required her unparalleled focus but didn't require swinging from the infected wrist.
She performed a routine, despite her fever and pain, and scored a near-perfect 9.95.
A score of 9.95 under those conditions is just. It's a display of almost unimaginable mental toughness and focus. That single performance provided the margin of victory, allowing Romania to claim their historic first team gold medal. Immediately following the ceremony, she returned directly to All Saints Hospital for further treatment and a minor surgical procedure to deal with the infection. It cemented her image as a fierce, committed competitor, willing to endure extreme pain for her country.
And that leads us into the ultimate political battleground, the 1980 Moscow Olympics. The Games were dominated by Cold War boycotts, but Romania was compelled to attend.
The 1980 Games were a political minefield. The U.S.-led boycott over the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan meant the competition lacked many Western participants, which led the Romanian government to loudly proclaim it as the first all-communist games.
But inside the Romanian team, the reality was tense. Comăneci articulated the danger clearly in her memoir.
She described the environment as walking into the mouth of a lion's den. She knew they were competing on the Russians' home turf, where judging fairness was highly suspect. This internal tension manifested dramatically in the competition.
Despite the pressure, she once again showed her immense capacity for recovery, even after a rare early mistake.
During the team competition, she had an uncharacteristic fall from the uneven bars, scoring a low 9.50. But she bounced back ferociously in the individual events, hitting 2 more perfect 10s, one on the balance beam and another on the uneven bars.
So what was the final medal tally for her in Moscow?
She won 2 gold medals, defending her title on the balance beam and tying with Nelly Kim for gold on the floor exercise. She also secured 2 silver medals for the team and the individual all-around.
The balance beam gold is particularly significant for the record books.
Yes. As of the 2020 Tokyo Games, Nadia Comăneci remains the only gymnast in history to successfully defend an Olympic gold medal on the balance beam apparatus, winning in 76 and again in 80. That is a stunning testament to her longevity in an event where small errors are immediately penalized.
But the 1980 all-around silver medal remains controversial, with many suggesting she should have won the gold over Elena Davidova of the Soviet Union.
The controversy was palpable, rooted in the perceived inflation of Soviet scores. And this scoring drama led to the famous televised outrage from her coach. Béla Károlyi, incensed by the perceived bias, launched into a very public, impassioned protest right there on the competition floor, gestures and all.
His defiance was captured by international cameras, providing a moment of genuine, uncensored critique of the host country.
And that was a dangerous, unforgettable act. According to Comăneci's own accounts, the Romanian government was beyond furious. They viewed his public display not as a defense of his athlete, but as a humiliation of the state itself. This event greatly intensified the existing difficulties in surveillance facing Károlyi, and really it set the stage for the inevitable break. Károlyi's televised protests in Moscow had immediate and severe repercussions back in Bucharest. This pressure cooker environment was the primary reason the 1981 Nadia 81 tour of the United States became the tipping point.
The tour was ostensibly a goodwill mission featuring Romanian gymnasts, but it served as the backdrop for a massive personnel loss for Romania.
The Federation, likely believing Comăneci was safe and contained, allowed the Károlyis to travel with the team. But during the final day of that extensive official tour of America, Béla and Márta Károlyi, along with the team's choreographer Geza Posar, successfully defected and requested asylum in the United States.
And Károlyi offered Nadia an indirect opportunity to join them, but she chose to return home.
She did. She made the personal decision to return to Romania at that time, perhaps underestimating the extreme reaction the state would have to the Károlyis' actions. But her life changed overnight. The Romanian officials viewed her as too valuable and too visible to be trusted again.
She was immediately classified as a national asset, which meant she was essentially viewed as state property that could not be allowed to defect.
That classification came with immediate and brutal consequences. The officials imposed suffocating controls. They strictly limited her contact with foreigners, banned her from traveling outside the country, with the exception of tightly controlled, symbolic trips to loyal communist allies like Moscow and Cuba, and seized control over the modest financial incentives that had been provided to her family.
This is where we need to address the true nature of her captivity, because it was enforced by the most feared instrument of Ceausescu's totalitarian regime, the Securitate.
The Securitate was the secret police force, omnipresent and ruthless, responsible for enforcing the absolute will of the dictator. For Nadia, being a national asset meant round-the-clock surveillance.
What did that surveillance entail on a day-to-day basis?
It was a psychological prison.
Yeah.
Agents constantly monitored her movements, her meetings, her telephone calls. She wasn't simply a well-guarded celebrity. She was a prisoner in a gilded cage. In her memoir, she vividly describes the feeling of being cut off, humiliated, and watched. She noted that even normal Romanian citizens sometimes had the opportunity to travel, but she, the national icon, was completely restricted. This crushing lack of personal agency led to her famous, stark observation: "I started to feel like a prisoner."
And the state kept this surveillance up even after her official retirement.
Her official retirement ceremony took place in 1984 in Bucharest. It was a highly public and orchestrated event attended by the chairman of the International Olympic Committee. It was supposed to symbolize the state's continued ownership of her image. But even with her athletic career over, the surveillance did not ease, which only intensified her desire for freedom.
This desperation led her to make the terrifying decision to defect just weeks before the system that held her captive finally collapsed.
She made her escape on the night of November 27, 1989. The timing is astounding, considering the Romanian Revolution that violently overthrew Ceausescu began on December 16th. Less than 3 weeks later. She had no way of knowing the regime was on the brink of collapse, which makes her risk all the more terrifying.
The journey itself was fraught with danger. It wasn't a simple airplane flight.
No, it was an arduous, dangerous border crossing. She joined a small group led by Constantin Penetz, a Romanian who had previously defected and gained U.S. citizenship. The route required them to cross the heavily guarded Hungary-Romania border near Sinad. They traveled primarily on foot, using the darkness of night to avoid detection by border patrols. After crossing into Hungary, they traveled through Austria before she finally boarded a plane to the United States.
Once she arrived in the U.S., she initially struggled to find her footing, spending time in Florida, Los Angeles, and Montreal. But eventually, her path led her back to the world of gymnastics and a familiar face.
In 1991, she moved to Oklahoma to assist her friend and fellow gold medalist, Bart Conner, with his gymnastics academy. It was a professional move that reconnected her with the man she had met briefly 15 years earlier. She remembered Conner fondly from the 1981 tour, noting he was incredibly friendly and fun, and provided a much-needed sense of stability and normalcy.
And that professional foundation blossomed into a deeper relationship.
They began dating and were together 4 years before getting married in 1996. And the wedding became this extraordinary symbolic event. It transcended a simple marriage ceremony to become an act of national reconciliation.
They chose to return to Bucharest for the wedding, which occurred well after the fall of the communist regime. This homecoming was dramatically different from her desperate escape.
The new democratic Romanian government welcomed her back, not as a defector, but as the prodigal national hero. The event was televised live across Romania, transforming it into a moment of national celebration. And the ultimate symbol of this reconciliation. The reception was held in the former presidential palace, the very seat of the power that had once imprisoned and monitored her. It linked her personal triumph with the political triumph of the Romanian people over the totalitarian state.
She solidified her life in the U.S. by becoming a naturalized citizen in 2001, but the sources emphasize that she retained her Romanian citizenship, embracing a powerful dual identity.
And that dual citizenship is key to her enduring legacy. It signifies her ability to maintain a deep connection to her roots and her history while fully embracing the freedom and opportunities of her new home. It's a physical manifestation of bridging the gap between two worlds that were once ideological enemies.
Beyond the records, the medals, and the political drama, Nadia's most lasting impact is enshrined in the technical development of gymnastics itself. She was known for pioneering moves that literally changed the sport's code of points.
Her technical hallmarks were a perfect blend of sheer power, which allowed for unprecedented difficulty, and her famous stoicism, which ensured clean, clinical execution. Her control was such that she looked almost immune to pressure, allowing her to perform these high-risk, innovative skills consistently.
She has two skills officially named after her in the Code of Points, which is the definitive rulebook for every gymnast globally. Both are on the uneven bars, the Comăneci salto and the Comăneci dismount. Let's unpack the mechanics of the salto because it was truly revolutionary.
Okay, so the Comăneci salto is a front support on the high bar, followed by a powerful cast that launches the gymnast into a forward straddled salto, aiming to re-catch the bar. To understand why this was so radical, you have to think about the physics of the uneven bars.
When you perform a typical release move, you are generally using the momentum built up from the swing to carry you over the bar, or in a path that facilitates an easy catch.
Exactly. Nadia's move, the straddled salto, goes against the natural rotational momentum. It requires immense upper body strength and precision to perform the straddle, complete the rotation, and re-grab the high bar. It was a new path of rotation, essentially creating momentum where existing mechanics suggested deceleration. It was so far ahead of its time that even today, in the 2025-2028 Code of Points, it still holds an E difficulty rating, meaning 0.5 points, a significant element for any competitive gymnast.
And what about the Comăneci dismount?
That skill involves an underswing with a half-turn, a 280-degree turn into a backward tucked or piked salto. While it's rated slightly lower at a C difficulty, so 0.3 points, it was pioneering for its complex connection and controlled rotation required right before the landing. The fact that her name is permanently enshrined in the rulebook means every single elite gymnast must study and understand the techniques she invented.
And it wasn't just the bars. Her work on the balance beam was also instrumental in advancing the level of difficulty.
The balance beam is an apparatus only 4 inches wide. To introduce high-risk tumbling elements was just groundbreaking. She is universally credited as the first gymnast to successfully perform an aerial cartwheel back handspring series. This combination involves a sustained series of acrobatic maneuvers without the aid of hands touching the beam for support.
Removing the hands means there's absolutely no room for error, right?
Zero room. Any slight wobble or deviation in trajectory is a fall. This series required an almost terrifying confidence and kinetic awareness. She's also credited with being the first to perform a double twist dismount on the beam, which requires massive height and fast rotation off that narrow surface. Again, adding a level of complexity previously thought too dangerous or difficult.
Her technical innovation and artistry did not cease when she retired. She remains one of the most involved and influential figures in global gymnastics administration.
Her influence continues to shape the sport, particularly in Romania. She serves as the honorary president of both the Romanian Gymnastics Federation and the Romanian Olympic Committee. This gives her a voice in the development of her home country's athletic programs. She is also a foundational member of the International Gymnastics Federation Foundation.
And she and Bart Conner have successfully leveraged their shared Olympic legacy into a comprehensive business and media enterprise.
They have. They've established a major hub for the sport in the U.S., owning and operating the Bart Conner Gymnastics Academy in Oklahoma. They also run the Perfect 10 production company and several sports equipment shops, essentially covering every angle of the gymnastics industry. Crucially, they serve as the editors of International Gymnast magazine, maintaining their authority and presence right at the center of the sports media and community.
But perhaps the most compelling part of her post-career life is her charitable work back in Romania, a country that was once her prison.
Her focus on philanthropy is deeply personal and impactful. She personally funded the construction and operation of the Nadia Comăneci Children's Clinic in Bucharest. This facility provides essential low-cost and free medical and social support to Romanian children. It's a remarkable way of using the wealth and global recognition generated by that state-controlled system to directly serve and empower the next generation, completely independent of government interference.
And the Olympic flame has not gone out for her. She continues to be a crucial symbolic presence at the Games.
Her presence is perennial. She provided television commentary for the 2008 Beijing Olympics. In 2012, she was one of the esteemed individuals chosen to carry the Olympic torch onto the roof of the O2 Arena in London as part of the relay. And most recently, in the lead-up to the 2024 Paris Games, she was there, participating in the final symbolic stages of the torch relay. She was carrying the flame up the River Seine alongside other icons like Carl Lewis, Serena Williams, and Rafael Nadal. She is simply the embodiment of Olympic excellence.
An image that transcended its communist origins and became a universal symbol of perfection. #outro. As we conclude this deep dive, let's nail down the critical takeaways that define Nadia Comăneci's monumental career. First, remember the sheer technical novelty of her achievement. The Perfect 10 was confirmed as literally impossible by the scoreboard manufacturer Omega when it malfunctioned in 1976, forcing a technical evolution in the sport.
Second, we saw that her legendary excellence was forged in the intensely rigorous, often emotionally demanding training environment of the Károlyi system. It shaped her career from the age of 6, providing the necessary precision, but also the emotional vulnerability that would plague her later years.
And finally, her career provides a stark, compelling illustration of the immense political control exercised over elite athletes in the former communist bloc. Her life from 1981 to 1989 was a study in oppression, enforced by round-the-clock surveillance from the dreaded Securitate Secret Police, ultimately leading to her terrifying defection just weeks before the regime fell.
Her relevance is just undeniable. It's evidenced by the fact that the International Sports Press Association, AIPS, voted her in 2024 as the best female gymnast of the past 100 years. Her perfection continues to define the sport.
Which leaves us with a provocative thought for you to carry forward, the core tension of her life. Her incredible athletic skill could not insulate her from the grinding political reality. However, her decision to return to Romania for her televised wedding held in the former presidential palace no less helped reconcile the image of a national hero for a post-communist generation.
So consider her current, fascinating diplomatic position. Nadia Comăneci today serves as an honorary consul general of Romania to the U.S., while retaining both citizenships. Once considered a mere asset and a prisoner of the state, what does her ability to now officially represent her homeland as a free woman and a U.S. citizen teach us about the ultimate power of personal agency and the long process of international and personal reconciliation in a global world?
Something powerful to reflect on. That is a deep dive completed. Thank you for joining us.